And throughout the year, we've had some incremental prices on fuel product. Okay, so it means that you go to the pumps and it's been increased. Just recently, we had one, and prior to now, until just this morning, we got the news that it had been rescinded. There were attempts by the NPA to have a component of some charges on fuel prices that could also ultimately have translated into upward adjustment of fuel prices. Quickly, we had COPEC issue a statement, and Duncan Amwa is here, right here, representing COPEC and as that pressure group and the advocacy and the chamber for petroleum consumers. Ultimately, we need to have that great conversation. We also do have from IES, that's Institute for Energy Security. Their representative also all up here. And thank you for joining me. Okay, but straight away, let me go with you. That has been rescinded, and it was because you had alleged that the NPA had wanted to have some component of pricing that could ultimately result in some increment of fuel prices, so to speak. But it's been now rescinded. That's it.
Let me say good morning to you, Roland. Good morning to your cherished viewers, and Afishapa to everybody.
Thank you for here.
Indeed, on Friday, the NPA had communicated to the various oil marketing companies that everyone should, starting from the 16th, which was yesterday, Monday, they should start charging an upward charge on some of the components on our fuel taxes, the key being what you call the BOST margin, which in the mind of the NPA should be increased from the 3 pesos it is currently to 6 pesos. That for us represents a 100% jump in that margin. And then the UPPF, which is largely used in moving petroleum products from one part of town to the other, had also been increased by a peso. I received that memo on Friday. I needed to do a few background checks and ask questions as to whether the NPA now has taken over the job of the finance ministry, because we know that direct taxes in Ghana is only a function of the finance minister and subject to approval by parliament. So when you come to a point where the only thing you're seeing is NPA instructing that people be made to pay more at the pumps directly, you set out asking Parliament, did you approve this? Our check with the Finance Committee in Parliament says, no, we didn't approve anything. The Subsidiary Legislation Committee also indicates nothing of the sort has come to them. So, off the top of our heads, we could tell this was an illegal act. Again, if you start probing and asking questions as to why we should even think of increasing a certain margin for BOST.
Why not?
Roland, I do not bear any ill will or feeling towards BOST as an entity, but I think that as a Ghanaian, things must be done right. We did set up BOST for one key thing. If you look at the name, the bulk oil storage and transportation, we did set up BOST to be a national stockholder, strategic stockholder, a depot where you can put all your fuel when prices are misbehaving on the international market. Then you can have a fuel stock that you could release onto the market at a certain old price, such that you don't overburden your pump. So it was more or less supposed to be a buffer for you and I. Unfortunately, they've now moved away from being a national stockholder, a strategic stockholder, to an active player within the downstream space. As we speak, BOST has got a license to also import and trade fuel, right? Which is a semblance of how fuel trade, Chase, Sahara, and others behave. They build their farm tanks. Of course, they can create space for others who want to bring fuel and store. But if you bring fuel and store, you are paying your throughput fees. So that is a commercial entity, purely economic, Roland. And so the idea that it was going to hold strategic stock for all of us and was going to release stock when prices were quite soaring doesn't seem to be working anymore. If you ask BOST today, what is our strategic stock position, I'm sure you'll find 0. So it means that the reason why Ghanaians should now be contributing to their operations, because initially if you are not engaged in business operations or active trading, one expects that, of course, your tanks would need to be maintained. I mean, moving fuel from one part of town to the other will cost some money. So let Ghanaians also put in something. But the moment you move to become an active player, if you recall somewhere 2015, they were the dominant player downstream, bringing as much as 70% of Ghana's fuel. And so once you are an active player, you trade for profit equally, like everybody else does, right? It becomes unsustainable to come to Roland, to the trotro driver, the taxi driver, and say, continue to give us margins. What for? Especially when Ghanaian taxpayers' money has been used in constructing these big tank farms for you, right? And it's not a burden for you to pay back. Because I know as far back as in the 90s, when BOST was building those tanks, the books of gold was used to pay for those tanks, right? Take, for instance, the case of Safe World Trade. A private player who goes to take money from the bank, build a tank farm, right? Operates and is able to pay back whatever it took to build a tank farm, right? And is able to, manage his operations without a peswa from you and I. Now, we have pampered BOST to a point where BOST now feels it's their right for the trotro driver to have to pump in more money, even when things don't add up. And so, clearly, Roland, that 3 peswa margin is already in contention. And for us to be told that there's an attempt to even increase it, it doesn't just gel. And we are happy that some serious interventions were made yesterday by the president and the chief of staff, and now we are where we are. It's been reversed.
But for IES, if you take a look at what the trends have been, particularly for this year, and you look at what the international prices have been and how they fluctuated, would you say that there have been convincing justifications for some of the adjustments we've seen this year over the period, very much, especially in relation to what has just been raised?
Thank you very much. Good morning to your viewers. Even before the BOST margin discussion, IES came out with their second quarter release. That's the second pricing window. And there's a lot that goes into the petroleum product price build-up. We have the local forests, we have the average Brent crude prices, we have the Standard & Poor's global benchmark of fuel, and the other component which is always constant, that's the taxes, the levies, and the margin. Now, our projection for this particular window, this festive season, was because the prices for gasoline, that's petrol, is coming down. It's actually decreased as compared to the previous one. And the prices of other products too are stable on the international market. The only issue, however, is the depreciation of the Ghana cedi. So we are saying that there's going to be a stable price. However, if the cedi continues to depreciate, then it's going to affect the local prices at the pump. Before we got to know about the increase in BOST margin and the UPPF, the BOST margin simply is a kind of margin that's kind of take care of the operating costs and the expansion of BOST. But did they need it? That's the question. As my senior brother rightly said, before BOST was supposed to hold strategic reserve and be in charge of our transportation of gas, fuel across the country. They're supposed to do that. Being a state asset, they were giving the 3 peswa, something around 10.5 million Ghana cedis per month.
Per month, yes.
Now, BOST have moved to be an active player. Formerly, they were not doing business. They were like strategic reserve for Ghana, like state-owned.
As a result of that, the two of you are arguing, that's not a justification for which then they would need any argument made or lobbying made for them to have this increase beyond the 3 peswa mark.
Like you said.
Is that a good justification to make?
Let me finish the point. We are IES. We even believe that the increment is even adding up to inefficiencies. Is rather to boost them to in continual inefficiency.
Tell me how.
Let me tell you something. As out of the 50 51 depot that around 51 depot that BOST is having, 16 is inactive.
Really?
Yes, please. We can ask them. Out of the about 361 kilometers of pipeline they have, about 161 is inactive. Do you get the point? Now, like my brother said, if you ask BOST at this moment, their major component, that's strategic reserve. They should tell us they don't have. So if there's a major shock on the international market, we are going to suffer at this moment. Now, as fuel prices are low on the international market, the first window, there was an increment of 1%. We, the citizens, the taxi drivers, the market women, bear the consequences. And when the prices of gasoline has rather reduced about 1.51%, about 1.51%, now BOST want to increase it. For what reason? And the justification to expand. We have a bigger infrastructure already, which we are not utilizing, and you want to expand.
For what reason?
For what reason?
For which market?
Okay.
For which market?
Now, Duncan, if we look at what the trend has been, the concerns that as civil society, advocacy groups, and also chambers, you have with the way downstream petroleum administration management has been, what are the implications cost-wise, utilization on the average consumer?
You see, Roland, we have on several occasions made a point that political actors often think of cheap revenue. And so because Ghana consumes about 11.7 million daily, if I want to put 10 pesos, I can easily calculate and predict how much I'll be making daily, weekly, and monthly.
Easy peasy.
Easy. What they do not often do is what we call the unintended consequences of policy. They don't think about those bits. So I am increasing fuel. What does it mean to the economy, right? What does it mean to the trotro driver? What does it mean to the kinky seller? What does it mean to even employers, right? Not employees. What does it mean to those creating jobs? If initially I was spending 1,000 cedis on my fuel to run in a week, and you increase and I go to 1,200, Roland, what you have effectively done is that the 200 bits that I could have possibly saved to expand or create an additional seat for somebody, that money is wiped away from my operations cost. And so if I'm not careful, the 5 employees I keep, it gets to a point where I have to ask one to go home. I have created a certain jobless situation. So once you keep increasing fuel, the unintended consequences, I would want government to sometimes avert their minds to that. What you are putting up is that you are increasing cost of living for everybody, right? For those who even have, incomes, they complain. So imagine those who don't have incomes at all, they're unemployed, those downtrodden. You make life just unbearable for them. And so we have said that if government is minded by these unintended consequences or implications, it would be a bit careful sometimes in rushing to the pumps to say, let me take more. The more you take, the more you collapse your own economy. The more you make everything unworkable. The more you throw people's plans out of gear. Because Roland, if say somebody who probably has an income, right? You knew you were going to spend 500 cedis on fuel for the month. Suddenly you're spending 550. It means that it must affect something somewhere, right? Some support that you ordinarily would have given your younger brother or somebody else in need in society. So once that is cut back, that person suffers. Any opportunity the person would have made probably to even advance in life, they can't.
Yeah.
So fuel price increases, they do have very dire consequences on economies as ours. It's quite intriguing that America, as we speak today, is able to sell fuel around 18 cedis, 19. Ghana has crossed 24, going on to 25. And we are still happy. Those who earn in dollars, right, they are still mindful of just passing everything on. Yeah. If you don't diversify your economy and you think that the only point you should make money from is the cheaper fuel prediction, that's it, if I put in 5 pesos, I'm going to make X, Y, Z amount, you end up putting unnecessary strain, hardships and economic pressure on people who probably may not be prepared for that.
If this had gone through, we'll transition into first quarter next year, definitely. And ultimately, by the time any decision is made, then it will be second quarter. But it also is revenue mobilized for state coffers all the same. Now, we do also know that the implications of having all that on the consumer is always there. But at what point in time should, let's say, those who are managing the economy need to do proper dialogue with stakeholders within the industry before such decisions are made?
Thank you very much. All this in reference to BOST. See, there's something I call illogical reasoning or illogical policy making in Ghana. We make policy, like you said, without looking at the consequential effect. Now, BOST, we are going for the low-hanging fruit, like taxing the truck drivers, the market women. Now, but BOST, everybody agree, BOST need some injection, they need infrastructure expansion. That's why we agree with them. But it's not for them to tax the common people, the people on the street who are hustling every day. Now, BOST need around $150 million to revamp. And they need about $65 million to input into infrastructure. But that cannot come from we, the citizens. We are contributing 3% to them every day already. What they need to do is to sit down and take proper critical thinking. That's what is needed. Recently, America of Saudi, they go out and do injection into their infrastructure. They got a lot into the trillions. What BOST need right now is to sit down and position itself for strategic investors. We have national institutions here in the country
that could also be
interested in investing. And if they position themselves very well, like listing on the stock exchange, BOST is a good asset that can bring us revenue. But it's how you manage it, how the policymakers position it.
So does it mean, Duncan, all of you in your side of the industry think that there's a problem with the way BOST is being managed? And as a result of that, that is why we always have these related issues being raised.
Roland, only a novice would say there's no problem.
Well, let's think that I'm a novice.
No, not you.
Okay.
I'm saying only a novice would think there's no problem with the way it is, I mean, currently operating. An institution that you expect, right, to be out there, I mean, aggressively seeking to even make money and give the consolidated fund something, right, has become, instead of an independent institution, it's become a dependent. And so, like he said, if BOST has very useful economic programs, I have a need for 150 million for this. So if I went to the financial market with a program that says, this is my plan, this is what I want to do. In 5 years, my daily whatever returns could be this. In 5 years, I should be able to offset whatever amount I'm given, right? Roland, that is talking business. But if you come to the low-hanging fruit, like he said, and everything must be doled out to you freely, the truck driver you are seeking to get additional 10.2 million or 5 million from every month, he doesn't go home sometimes with 200 cedis the whole month after stressing from morning and all of that. What he takes out, what he saves, 5 cedis.
Well, taxation is supposed to be used for development, isn't it?
Exactly, Roland. But you see, tax in such a way, you do not overburden one side of your economy. Because when you do that, every other side of your economy would now also find a way to either tilt towards it and collapse eventually.
You don't tax and put it in a basket.
You don't overtax people believing that, I mean, once I take more money and give it to BOST, and BOST has a need for 150, right? Today they have a need for 150. Tomorrow they'll have a need for 250. You cannot satisfy the needs of an institution or an organization who has decided not to be prudent. And I say this, we have had past managers who have gone there, all kinds of stories, all kinds of dubious, corrupt practices. Has a single one of them been surcharged? No. So people go there, milk the institution, take bad policies, and eventually end up paying judgment debt, huge ones, right? Just 2018, the GNPC together with the NPA had to bail out BOST in excess of 100 million because of a judgment debt that was hanging and somebody was threatening even the entire state. Clearly, avoidable things. People go to store their products, right? Instead of accounting for the product, eventually the product vanishes. and they take you to court, and you and I would have to go and pay for it. Roland, they need to set up. Once they do and ensure there's greater efficiency in the operations, they do not need to come to Roland for more money.
A running website.
They do not come to you for more money when the institution they establish or operate is worth millions of dollars already. And if they have workable, bankable plans, the financial market in Ghana and elsewhere will be willing to, invest in the Roland.
Okay, so your last word, tank farms. And that's what they do, right?
Yes.
That's the sort of business. Yeah. But this time, it's a national strategic institution. Yeah. Okay. What really could be their great benefit if so-called what the two of you say is at variance to what you're doing now?
So, at IES, we believe that BOST must sit up, properly have a critical policies that gear towards inviting investors, both institutional and foreign.
That's your position?
Yeah, that's our position. Because we believe that it's enough for BOST to go back to those down there, the poor people, the market humans, to go and be drawing money from them and be putting into basket. And at the end of the day, we don't get any benefit. If you ask BOST, their major component, where they exist, their strategic reserve, we don't have now. Their pipes are inactive. So what do they want to expand again? That's the question. That's the question we are asking. They need to answer. They want to expand. What is have infrastructure that you are not using? Expand to where? You see,
exactly. To what market?
It does not make great argument for them to ask for a margin. Because already you are becoming an active player. The reason why we are even giving you the 3% was that we
was to show up.
To show up, because we are not actively engaged. Now you are actively engaged, making loss. You are asking us to be paying for your loss.
I mean, nobody can.
Nobody do that. See, we need to move forward. There's a lot of debt in the energy sector already, which I'm sure at the right time we will discuss. But BOST will not be a burden for the citizens, no. The 3% is a lot of burdens for Ghanaians already. How can you increase price in the first window? You know, if like they have increased price for, if like it have gone through like yesterday, like the pump, actually they asked them to review their from 16. We have been paying, like those, we're buying a gallon at the pump at 25 Ghana cedis instead of 24. Now that was a 3.3% increment. Why? So if like Joy FM, you move out with your cars every day, 1 CD multiplied by how you move out. The employer was talking about the employers. Because no, it's not the employees, so it's the employers. They suffer. At the end of the day, it affects the employees because you will not get an increment in it.
It's the economics of it.
Economics of it.
Well, thank you very much. And with the Institute for Energy Security is Raymond Nuopo.
Yes, please.
Thank you for joining me. I've enjoyed your contributions this morning.
Thank you.
We hope that I'll have you again.
Thank you.
My producer will do that. But ultimately, and Duncan Amwa is with the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers. Thank you for joining me. They're known as COPEC. Ghana is a great country of acronyms, COPEC. But COPEC has come to stay. And Duncan Amwa, thank you. We don't have you in the studio very often, and so we're grateful. Please make sure that you join in the conversation, get interactive. Facebook Join News on TV. We have a Twitter handle as well. We hope that you've enjoyed great coverage this morning. We'll top it up with some great entertainment highlights with Becky on AM Showbiz, always brought to you by Wake Purified Water. Stay with us.